Hello and good morning, everybody.
Hi.
What's going on, man?
Can't complain. How are you?
Wow, if you could complain, what would you complain about?
Well, how much time do you have?
Right. Hey, I got to tell you something, Max. I'm here in Charlotte. This is right here in our backyard. This story, and I was shocked because I didn't know the story, but now I know more of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I think in today's news cycle, I sort of convinced myself I can't be shocked by anything. And then when I was investigating this story, it was sort of shock after shock.
Yeah, and you have to look beyond the headlines. In other words, you have to go to page 6. You have to go to page 7 or 8 because it's going to be buried somewhere. Go find it.
Absolutely.
But isn't that why we depend on people like yourself, Max? Because journalism has taken on a whole new level of play these days with books such as this.
Definitely. I mean, and, you're talking about the difference between headlines and the real story. When this headline came out, the police claimed they had only found 44,000 Xanax pills at the College of Charleston. And then I started talking to a defense lawyer who let it slip. They had found closer to 3 million.
God.
And so, I think that's often the case. There's often way more sort of behind the headlines, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of resources really to sort of figure that out.
Do you think that this took place at the College of Charleston because that's a medical university?
That's funny. No one's asked that, but I actually do think there was some tie-in with the medical students there. But I think it's more the location of Charleston. Mm-hmm. It's not far from I-95, which they call the cocaine highway, connecting Miami and New York. It's obviously one of the biggest centers for bachelorette parties and imaginable. You have King Street. It's a port city, so a lot of stuff was coming in from China via the dark web, into the ports. And then also, you have just a pretty insane amount of wealth coming down from places like Greenwich, Connecticut, Westchester, wealthy New England suburbs. Then you have kids from these old Southern families. And then to top it all off, you have a really strong fraternity system, which is what all these drugs were moving through.
Well, and the way I look at it as well is there's a lot of room in that Charleston area where you can hide stuff because there's a lot of open country.
Definitely. A lot of open country. It's kind of a smuggler's paradise. You have all those kind of wetlands. And then also you just have all these, multi-100-year-old, multi-million-dollar houses all walking distance from each other. The only policeman nearby is a campus cop with a flashlight and a Segway. And so, it's kind of the dream place to start a drug ring like this. But of course, what I found is that this drug ring really stretched to fraternity houses around the South and ultimately around the country. And so in another way, just the fraternity system generally is a pretty great setup for running a transnational multi-million-dollar drug ring.
I can't imagine what you went through mentally and creatively every time that you found something new about this story.
Definitely. I mean, there were so many twists, and there's a murder, student deaths, and all sorts of betrayals, and at first it feels like, oh, this is a juicy true crime story or something, but then you actually start to talk to parents who lost their sons, and there's nothing salacious or fun about it. It's obviously the heaviest thing in life is talking to a parent who's lost a kid.
Wow, you sat down with 120 people on this, and it just amazes me how many people were so willing to share.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely took time, right? At first, no one wanted to talk, and then it kind of takes on a momentum of its own. I think once people start to think, okay, well, this is happening, they think, well, I want to give my perspective then. I don't want other people just talking about me. And then also, once you get your hands on the police files, the court documents, and there's, thousands of pages of that stuff, people start to go, okay, well, the story's getting out there, so might as well kind of tell what I know.
The book we're talking about is Among the Bros. One of the things that you bring up that kind of haunted me, and it makes me kind of more aware of what really goes on, and that is that many of those that are involved were not prosecuted.
Yeah, so, if you look at this ring, and like I said, it's close to 3 million Xanax pills. It was also a few dozen pounds of weed, a few pounds of cocaine, assault rifles, a grenade launcher, really major stuff. Of the guys in this ring, really only one is in prison right now. And a few others did, kind of 1 or 2 year terms. Most of them weren't charged at all. A few got probation. And if you look at the fraternities, the two main fraternities involved, One got kicked off campus for 4 years, came back. The other never left campus at all. And you can go on their Instagrams now. They're both public, and they're posting videos from pretty wild parties.
Wow. Was it the money thing that protected them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of it. One stat I found is that 75% of all money given to U.S. universities is Greek life alumni. And that's 2% of the population, 75% of the money. It gives you a sense of just how much wealth is concentrated in this very small system.
Did anything shock you, or is this just something you're going, oh my God, I mean, it can't get any worse than it already is, but it does?
I think the one thing that shocked me is you sort of get used to the sort of, consequence of a world without consequences. You see people just get away with a DUI, then get away with a simple possession, then get away with this, possession with intent to distribute, and it just keeps growing and growing. But I think in the back of your head, you think, yeah, they can get away with a lot, but at some point, they're going to run into a wall. And I think what's kind of shocking is that wall never came, or any wall that they ran into, they just could drive right through. And yeah, I think that does kind of surprise me, because it's even if, I grew up in this world, I was in a fraternity, I'm from the South, but like, it does kind of go against what you learn in Sunday school a little bit.
Man, you were facing some serious walls, though. First of all, we're talking about drugs, and then we're talking about a lot of money. When that involves other people's emotions, do you find fear in any of this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were plenty of people who didn't want this story to come out. I think, a lot of the guys in that world, it's more fear of a lawsuit or something than fear of violence. And that's why, you do like a really in-depth legal read and really in-depth fact checking, and everything has to be corroborated by multiple sources. But yeah, there's definitely fear and anxiety with doing something like this. But at the same time, so many guys from this bubble, and, this is why I wrote the book to begin with, had their lives affected by the insane amount of Xanax running through these parties. It's an incredibly addictive drug. It's one of 2 drugs you can die of withdrawals.
Yep.
And so many people wanted to talk, because even if they feel defensive of the system, they also have lost enough friends to know that, something needs to change.
I'd like to know how they laundered the money, because I know what happens when you go into a grocery store to get a money order, or even Western Union. You hit that $3,000 mark, you're filling out the paper, and that means the government is now involved. So I would like to know how they laundered this money.
So it's a few things. I mean, one, there were guys, and they talked about this on some of the wire phone calls. They were wiring money through the fraternity slush funds. So, you can have it written down as a donation, or, it's going toward a party or something. But it's a very loosely regulated system. And these chapters weren't like this, but at the highest end, they're fraternities with $1 million a year social budgets. And so there's just so much cash moving around, kind of churning. But then the other thing is, one of the guys in this ring was the first ever American to have his Bitcoin seized by the federal government.
Oh my God.
So, there's some early adapters.
Wow. Was it easy to get in to get more information from the DEA, the FBI, and even the Postal Service?
No, they were not that quick to talk. It took a few years, but they do keep the DEA specifically keeps very good documentation. And so once I started getting a hold of their sort of interview records, I was stunned by, how much they kind of had. But yeah, what's funny that the Postal Service was involved. Something a DEA agent told me is that the U.S. Postal Service is the biggest drug trafficker in the world, because it's just so easy to mail drugs, and it's, they're so underfunded. They have no hope of regulating everything that's moving through the mail. And also, I've had drug dealers tell me they do it in the mail because it's a felony to open someone else's mail, so they feel protected compared to other courier methods.
Those little geniuses.
Exactly.
So you said years. So how long did you put your life into this project?
I think it came out to a little over 4 years.
Wow.
And it's about half reporting, maybe a little over half, and then the other half writing and editing. But to do something like it was something like 200 interviews, 120 sources. Like a lot of the legwork is even just finding the people, right? Yeah. When you're starting out. So that was an embarrassing amount of time, was even just trying to find who to email.
Wow. So where can people find more information about you, Max, give you some love, and really, really start following you as a journalist?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, max-marshall.com. my email's on there. Feel free to reach out. And then Among the Bros is available really anywhere. You can get it, Amazon, Audible, Barnes & Noble, and especially local bookstores.
I love it, man. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, dude.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
You be brilliant, okay?
All right, thanks. Have a great one.